Realme had released their Narzo series with an idea of bringing affordable, performance-focused smartphones into the Indian market. Well, how has their newly released Narzo 10 fared in that regard? Let's find out in today's review. Hey guys, Omarto here from C4eTech, and if you do end up enjoying this video, then please consider subscribing and turning on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. So what makes a fast smartphone? Well, there's two sides to it. Of course, we have the hardware, the CPU, the RAM, the internal storage and all that, but we also have the software, and that plays a very important role in bringing all these hardware components together. Since the Narzo 10 is supposed to be a performance-focused mid-ranger, we decided this was the best place to kick off the review. Powering the Narzo 10 is a MediaTek Helio G80 chipset. Now this chipset from MediaTek is a middle-of-the-line offering that slots right in between the G70 that we have seen on the Realme C3 and the G90T on the Realme 6. Performance-wise, the Narzo 10 is at a similar level to the Realme 5 Pro. So basically the Snapdragon counterpart to the MediaTek G80 is the 712. Now benchmarks aside, how does it perform in real life? Well, this is where things started to go wrong for the Narzo 10. My review unit for some reason came riddled with bugs. Something as simple as making YouTube full screen would refuse to work at times. The touch response was flaky at best, and at times it took a solid 2 to 3 seconds before the phone would respond to me pressing the power button to wake it up. Now, to be fair, Realme did push out updates, and while they did improve system stability a bit, overall, I felt like the Narzo 10A with the less powerful G70 ended up being the most stable performer, especially in day-to-day tasks. Or so I thought before Ash read the script and he basically said he's facing the same issues with the 10A which he's testing. The silver lining here is that it seems to be a software issue that hopefully Realme can address. So basically we think that it's a lack of software optimization in here that's holding the Narzo 10 series back. We have seen Realme UI before on a lot of other phones. It's performed brilliantly on mid-range hardware like on the Realme X2 and the Realme 6. So I don't really know what went wrong with the Narzo 10. Now these bugs were an occasional occurrence, but for the rest of the time, the Narzo 10 actually did pretty well. The animations were smooth and I didn't notice any lag either. Of course, thanks to the eMMC storage, app opening times felt a little slow, especially if we compare it to something like the UFS 2.1 storage that we have come to expect in phones of this range. That being said, we do have ample storage at 128 gigs. The 4 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM seem to handle multitasking pretty well, so no app reloads on the Narzo 10. We also have a dedicated microSD slot in here in case we need future storage expansion. Moving over to gaming, and this is where the G80 with its dual-core Mali G52 GPU gets to shine. We tried out PUBG at Balanced and Ultra, and the Narzo 10 managed to handle it just fine. There were a few frames dropped here and there, but for the most part the gameplay felt smooth and I didn't have any problems aiming down sights or flicking around to hit enemies. So as far as gaming on a budget goes, the Narzo 10 does pretty well. We also have game space in here and that helps optimize the experience further. So overall, the performance here is okay. I'd have said that it's great for the price, except for the software hiccups that I faced. Okay, so now what about the other aspects of the device? Well, we have a 6.5-inch LCD panel in here covered by Corning's Gorilla Glass 3 with a water drop notch up top. Realme calls this their mini drop full screen display. And while it does well with brightness and the colors, the sharpness isn't just there in this HD panel. Yep, Realme has gone with a HD Plus display in here instead of a full HD Plus panel, probably as a cost-cutting measure. Now, we have had the iPhone SE 2020 in office for a few weeks now, and I thought, well, if I didn't mind the lower resolution display on that, I probably wouldn't notice it much here either. However, the sub 300 ppi in here was really noticeable for me, especially when browsing Reddit or watching Netflix. Overall, the 6.5-inch LCD gets the job done, but we have better options out there in the same price range. Now, one place where the Narzo 10 does redeem itself is the battery life. We have a 5000 mAh battery in here and that lasted me around 2 days on a full charge. Pretty impressive. We also have an 18-watt fast charger included in the box, and that made getting quick top-ups during the day fairly easy too. Despite cramming in such a big battery, Realme still managed to keep the weight of the Narzo 10 under 200 grams. At 9mm, the Narzo 10 is a bit chunky, but the design here is well balanced and it never felt top heavy or like it would slip out of my hands while using it. Speaking of which, we have a full plastic build in here with the back sporting a nice grippy textured finish that doesn't really pick up fingerprints all that easy. As for the design, well, it's created by Naoto Fukasawa and I quite like that green color that we have here. We also have the Narzo 10 in white. The back pattern here resembles that of the Realme X2 Master Edition that was released last year. Now, designs are almost always personal preference, but then in the midst of all these glossy reflective finishes, the subtle matte finish here definitely caught my eye. Wrapping up the sundries, we have a bottom-firing loudspeaker in here that gets decently loud. Sound through the 3.5mm headphone jack is pretty good. I like how bright it was, and we also have an included equalizer in here that Realme is calling Real Sound Technology. Of course, since this is Realme UI based on Android 10, we also have dual mode music sharing in here. Moving on to the biometrics, we have a rear-mounted fingerprint scanner along with face unlock. Both of them work well, no complaints. Well, finally, it's time we talk about optics. We have a quad camera setup to the back of the Narzo 10, the primary being this 48 megapixel snapper paired with an f1.8 lens. As expected, pictures from the primary snapper come out looking great. The snaps look sharp with appreciable details. Realme does tend to oversaturate the blues and greens a bit, but personally I think that adds a bit of color and pop to these images. The dynamic range is pretty good and we even have chroma boost option in here. As for low light shots, well, this is where the Narzo 10 struggles. There's a dedicated night mode, but images come out with washed out colors and lots of noise. But they're bright enough that we can usually make out the subject. So okay for social media posts. As far as the ultra-wide camera is concerned, this 8 megapixel snapper delivers decent looking pictures, but the dynamic range can be a bit of a hit and miss. Shadows don't really have that much detail to them, and we tend to have some highlight clipping as well. Moving on to the macro lens, well, this is what the 2 megapixel macro sensor manages to capture. Not the most detailed shots, but it can catch some interesting perspectives. Finally, coming to the 2 megapixel black and white portrait sensor, well, edge detection on rear portraits are what I'd say is par for the course. Turning it around for the 16 megapixel selfie snapper, we have bright looking selfies that gets the colors and skin tones right. The details though aren't really there. Zooming in, I can see there's a lot of over sharpening going on. Coming to the selfie portraits, the edge detection is alright, but the dynamic range is lacking, which can lead to overexposed backgrounds. Videos aren't the strong suit of the Narzo 10 either. We can go up to 1080p 60fps video recording in here, but there's no option for 4K. As for the footage, it does look kind of grainy, even though the colors look vibrant and the dynamic range is passable. The lack of details though means that the video captured in here is good enough only for the occasional social media share. So before I sum up the Narzo 10, let's take a moment and see what the Narzo 10 nails and what points it kind of misses. First one, performance. It's good for gaming in the budget range, but then the bugs in Realme UI mean I can only give it an okay in this department. Second, display. The 720p display just didn't cut it for me. Third, battery life. The Narzo 10 has really great battery life, so this one gets a tick. Fourth, software and user experience. Now generally I like Realme UI. It's got some really useful features like a dark mode, 3-finger screenshot and stuff like that. So basically what this boils down to is that the Narzo 10 is decent at a lot of things. But then we have phones like the Realme 5 Pro, Realme 6, Redmi Note 8 and even the Vivo U20 that are in and around the same price point but do better than it in one or several of those factors that we mentioned above. So what's the final verdict on the Narzo 10? Well, I really like what you tried to do here, Realme. Create an affordable smartphone for the budget-conscious mobile gamer. But unfortunately, this ain't it. There's better options out there even if you're under a strict budget of 12,000 rupees. Let's take the Redmi Note 8 or Vivo U20 for example. Or spend 2,000 rupees more and get the Realme 6 that offers a lot more performance for very little extra money. So that's been my 2 cents on the Narzo 10. Now I wanna know what you guys think. Do you like what Realme has done here with the Narzo 10, or do you think they have kind of lost their way a little bit? Let us know in the comments below. And that's about it for this video. Like, share, subscribe and all that. And oh, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.